Let's go, people. It's May 27th. This is the Take It Deep podcast. We are broadcasting tonight and tackling a topic I have been looking forward to for months. This will be probably the most important episode to date of the Take It Deep podcast, in my opinion. The topic is something I'm very passionate about. But before we even get to it, let's take a look. I've got a new panel tonight. These are all rookies, all Take It Deep rookies. Doesn't mean they don't have experience. Doesn't mean they are not well-versed in life and everything else we're going to talk about. But they are rookies to the podcast. First and foremost, I have a dear friend of mine, Steve Hain, current big-time basketball coach, former wedding party member of The Best Day of My Life when I married my lovely wife. Coach Hain, how are we doing? Let's keep us up to date as to what's going on with Coach Hain these days.
Laying low here in Bay Ridge through this whole unfortunate time, but excited to be here through this whole this whole Springsteen top five. The hardest thing I've had to do probably is get down to my top five. We've got great panel here, great crew. We got Nigro, we got Andy Johnson in Finland, and I guarantee we're going to get to some of the most important stuff, and we'll definitely get to the top five, no question. But doing great here in Bay Ridge, and thrilled to be on with you, Chris. Thrilled.
So I got to talking with Steve. I had an important show I wanted to do. I went to my man who is just as passionate. For those of you who don't realize already, tonight's topic is our top five Bruce Springsteen songs. I asked him to get me a panel together of experts, guys that he could rely on, guys that could create the content I need. He has these two gentlemen that I'm going to introduce now. This is the A-team, ladies and gentlemen, as far as he's concerned, and I have to trust him. Steve and I have been together for roughly 17 years. He's never let me down. So first and foremost, coming from a different country, across some pond, I'm not sure which one, some ocean, we have Andy Johnston. Andy, welcome to the show. Tell us exactly where you are at this point, what you're doing. Really interesting story. We'd love to get a little quick snapshot of it. Go ahead.
I'm in Turku, Finland, the Nordic region, coaching professional basketball, and it's across the Atlantic, north. And good town, about 200,000 people. Everything's starting to open up a little bit more now, like in, I guess, June 1st. Restaurants and the bars and the gyms and all that kind of stuff is opening up. So things, things were kind of locked down. It wasn't as I think as serious maybe, or as stern maybe back in the U.S., especially in New York. But, I've been able to go to the supermarket and take walks and, all that kind of thing. And but it'd be nice to be able to go out and, get a meal or, have a beer somewhere, out starting June 1st. But, summer's great here. In the peak of the summer, there's only about 3 hours of darkness, and that's only like a dark gray. I mean, like it's light out right now to like 10 o'clock at night, so which is really cool. And it's nice that we'll be able to start getting out a little bit more starting June 1st to enjoy that kind of weather. But yeah, great region of the world.
What time is it right now where you are? Roughly 3:30 a.m.?
Yeah, 3:17.
So, ladies and gentlemen,
so we're 7 hours. We're 7 hours ahead of East Coast time. Yeah.
So you talk about dedication. This is. I have to really tip my hat. This was this important for you to come on at 3:30. So listen, I asked for the A-team. Apparently, so far I got it.
Well, your guy Steve. I mean, he told me. He says I got to do it. I said okay. I said what time is it at? He's like 5 o'clock. Okay. Well, that's East Coast time. I said that's 2 a.m. here. Because Steve, he does have an occasion. He'd dial me up at like 3 a.m. because he's not factoring in the time change.
I mean, lose track every so often.
What was that, Nigro?
He's awake, Steve.
Chiming in was obviously, last but not least, our final expert, Danny Nigro. I've had the pleasure of being around numerous times. High energy, your quintessential Brooklyn neighborhood guy, which I love. Coach Nigro, great to see you. How you been?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks for having me. I did have the pleasure of coaching at Dowling and getting to know Chris. I was lucky enough to work with Steve Hain at Dowling and work with Andy at St. Francis College. So now that he's in Switzerland, he's coming across.
Finland.
Finland. you know, like,
Perfect.
Same difference. Same difference.
One of the Lins. One of them.
It's like that Norman Rockwell, that picture with New York and then the rest of the world.
Like I said, you're a neighborhood guy. That's why we love you. So I would say conservatively between the three of you guys, there's over 100 years of experience coaching at every level of basketball, from the pro ranks all the way down to Division 1, 2, 3, wherever it is. So we've assembled quite a cast of basketball minds and basketball royalty to assemble a Bruce Springsteen list. So to me, I asked for the A team. I have obviously a panel that could probably write up a great triangle offense, probably run a full court press, no problem, probably even do better than that. But what do I need them for? I need top 5 Bruce Springsteen lists from everyone. I also want to talk a little bit, obviously, about his effect on you, his effect on most of his fans and across the world. And just any Bruce stories that we have, and we're gonna talk and go deep on obviously our lists, but a little bit of everything with the boss. Steve, I'll start with you. My background with Springsteen, being a little younger, was listening to my sister's record albums. She's 12 years older than me. That was my introduction to the boss, the songs themselves. And before I go further, there is a special guest that has just jumped on. Coach Hain, I'll let you intro our special Zoom bomb guest. I believe it's Glenn Breaker.
Oh, no.
yes, we got Glenn Breaker in the house.
No, Coach Hain, take the mic. Let's introduce Coach Breaker. Let's hear it.
Coach, hey, listen, you're right on time. We just got started.
Listen, I'm not a big Zoom guy. It took me a while.
Shocking that you're not a big technology guy. Shocking. But
I got
got
two
you, we
phones.
got
I
you.
got Zoom on one and everything else on the other.
He thought it was that show from the 70s, Zoom, you know? I mean,
So we got another Brooklyn.
Andrew, I almost wore the glasses for you, Andrew.
hey, you know, I could take them off, you know.
So this is a guy that put together the real dream team, the real A team, the Danny Nigro, the Annie Johnson basketball staff, who actually lived it, and
Listen, you want to have some entertainment, get those two guys together.
Nobody has ever seen Springsteen the way I did. I'm telling you.
What's that, Negro?
That was an amazing experience. May he rest in peace. The legend, Chukka, the Brooklyn legend, Daddy Disco, myself, and Glenn.
So Chris, Glenn with Nigro, you got to tell a story just from the jump, like
They whisked me away.
show.
They whisked me away at BMCC. They pulled up like I was going to get rubbed out and a mob hit. I jumped in the car. And then the next thing I knew, I was on my way to see the boss.
So you basically got kidnapped into your first Bruce show.
Kidnapped into the. I think I still owe Glenn money for the tickets.
He didn't pay for parking.
No way.
I guarantee it.
Nobody paid for parking. Chukka drove in the barrier at Giant Stadium backwards. So while Solano would be driving in to pay $20 to park, Chukka's driving through the opposite way and pulled up in front of the door at the Meadowlands, parked the car, and said, "Get out," and just left the car right in front of the entrance. Like a valet. From my mouth to God's ears, may he rest in peace. The three of them argued like 3 elementary school girls the entire ride about what exit to get off, who was right, who was wrong. The poor gentleman working security. The guys in the yellow coat with the lights. These 3 guys pull up to the parking lot and say, yo, cuz, can you let us in? Guy's like, sorry, can't let you in. Come on, guys. Come on. Can you let us in? They harassed the guy to the point where he pulled the gate and said, go ahead. He couldn't take it anymore. That's how Chukka got in the parking lot for free. That's where it begins. But let's go to a different story, and we'll come back and we'll do bits and pieces of that night with Bruce.
Yeah, some tells me we're not gonna. That won't be the last we hear of that experience. Coach Breaker, welcome to the podcast. It's great to have you on.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Thank you.
Anytime. Coach Hain spoke very highly of you. Wanted you to kind of be a surprise guest for everyone. Obviously,
Believe everything you hear.
Yeah, well, it was all good things. Believe me. This now sounds a lot like extra auditions for The Sopranos, or some type of sit down. That
all those guys die so I can get some of those parts.
Yeah, I think there's a lot available. You're right. So this is right up my alley. So we're gonna like I said, kind of go through the chronology of the experience with the boss. Just hearing that first story from Coach Nigro, I know for a fact now we got the right cast. There's no question. So what we're gonna do is. Coach Johnston, let's go to you. What are your earliest memories? How did it all start? You became a fan, I'm assuming, at somewhat of an early age. How did that all cultivate with you?
Well, I'm really an 80s guy. You know what I mean? Like Glenn, right? We're 80s guys. So, he exploded commercially, right, in the 80s. And, Born in the USA and that whole thing just exploded. And, and it connected with MTV and all that kind of stuff. You just couldn't – I don't think you could grow up in that time and not be a fan of Bruce Springsteen in America. You just couldn't. And so that's kind of what happened to me. To me, it was like everybody was a fan of his,
Yeah, and that was kind of the time, too, when that box set came out. I remember that huge box set came out. It was right around Christmas. It might have been 87, it might have been later, but I remember that was when I first really – the commercial thing to me really hit home.
If you could get that – by joining one of those, those companies where you could get 10 free,
Columbia House
or whatever, and not spend another dime, then I got that.
Yeah, right.
Then I got that.
Coach Breaker, where does it start for you? Obviously, you kidnapped people to go to concerts. That's passion. That's passion. Where the whole thing start for you?
The guy Chucker that they were speaking of, a good friend of mine, unfortunately passed away very young, but he actually is the only guy I know that snuck into a Bruce Springsteen concert. He could get into any place. And they actually had security at Giant Stadium about 100 yards from the stadium. And somehow he snuck into the place back in the 80s and found us amongst the crowd. I had no idea where we were sitting. That was an incredible experience. But really, I think what stepped it up a notch was
stuck into the VIP that night.
Jimmy Duncan Hines was working on Wall Street maybe about 15, 20 years ago. And there was a Springsteen concert at Shea Stadium. And he got us about 20 guys from the neighborhood. He got us tickets in the pit. And we got
from
there.
The neighborhood, by the way.
It was
the neighborhood.
It was a bunch of degenerates from Greenpoint, Williamsburg, and right next to us was Alec Baldwin, Bill Walton, the guy from the Howard Stern show, who then gave us a plug on the radio the next day. And the guy Springsteen put on a show that was just incredible. It was about, God knows, 4 hours. It was incredible. We were right in front. It was one of those concerts where he played all the good stuff. And the guy played for like 4 hours, and you could have won another 8 hours. It was just incredible. We had such a great time that night. It was amazing.
So it sounds like, we all have that similar feel. For me, I think that for people in the Northeast, for some reason, I think it hits even harder for us. I think Springsteen wrote about and talked a lot about the things you see. If you come from New Jersey, forget it. Like, no one knows better than you, right? If you're a Springsteen person and you live in Jersey, you have ownership. And I think he hits the fans that way. He writes things that, as I mentioned in the past, that are believable. Like I said, I believe that he went to Vietnam. I believe that he was a car mechanic. I believe that, he had a million women and had bad relationships with them. And I believe it all, which is very hard these days to find. but he makes it all believable. And besides being very talented and very, competent in terms of songwriting, I think he hits topics that all relate to, the average person. And that's probably where a lot of this comes from. What is it about it? Like Coach Hain, for instance, what's it about Springsteen songs or the ones you really like? What is it about that hits home to you? Is it the being able to relate? Is it, him writing that soundtrack of your life? What is it?
Honestly, I think what you said, Chris, is like, the personal identification of like what he's portraying and in every song. And, some connect with me, some don't, but the ones that do, like really do. And, and that's the beauty of Springsteen, because he's like every man's, kind of like lyric, every man's like, songwriter, and, and you kind of enjoy it through him. So that's to me, that's what is awesome about Springsteen. It's what I love. My kids enjoy it also. And they've different generation, but they've heard enough that they know enough. And that's what I love about Springsteen. It's cross generations too. It's not just our generation.
The last show I went to was 6 years ago, was with you up here in Connecticut. And you're right, there was quite a diverse crowd, anywhere from 70 to, basically 10 years old. And you could tell everyone obviously still, no matter what age, and the concerts themselves, as Coach Breaker, you just described, they can change you. They can change your life. The whole atmosphere with the signs and people holding up signs to request songs and everything that's involved makes it for an unforgettable thing. And not to mention, as you said, 4 hours, 3.5 hours, 4.5 hours. The guy's nonstop. He's a machine. And someone we all here working at high-level athletic endeavors, he's an anomaly to me.
I think he has an unbelievable passion for what he does. And I think coaches can relate to that.
Yes.
And, he can kind of half-step it at this point in his life, and he doesn't. The guy's amazing. I mean, what he puts into it at his age, it's just incredible. And his following is incredible. And, the music is about real life. And he puts so much into it that you can't help but really, get connected to it.
And that being said, so Coach Hain, we're going to start our top 5 lists. Steve, you're going to go first, and then Coach Johnston, be ready for it to go next. But we'll start with Coach Hain. Now, the top 5s, guys, this is your top 5. This isn't popular opinion. I don't dabble in popular opinion. I dabble in my opinion. So this is what I think should be a pretty wide list between all of us. Coach, you can have some honorable mentions that didn't make your top 5 if you do want to mention. But because I have a couple this was a very difficult list to pare down to 5 for me. Very, very difficult. So you could fire away. You could start with any honorable mentions that you have, and then go right from 5 first all the way to your top.
Yeah, I'm not going to rank them, but I'm going to give you 5. And my first one. I don't know if you guys can hear a little.
Oh yeah.
A little my hometown, a little for you guys, right? And it makes me think about where I grew up.
Yeah.
Makes me think about a lot of things. Also makes me think about Danny Nigro, growing up in Avenue U, and having a really special relationship with his neighbor and his dad. Like I'd love to hear about that. That special relationship that Danny had and his father had with his neighbor, and the unfortunate incident in his garage, his neighbor's garage. That would be.
There's no incriminating conversations on the podcast.
What's that?
No incriminating conversations on the podcast.
All right. So we can't talk about that?
We didn't like the neighbor didn't like Bruce.
What's that?
The neighbor didn't like Bruce Springsteen. Got what was coming.
Perfect. That's why you're on this panel. That's why you're on this panel. It led you to violence. I love it.
So my second one would be growing up. And I love the song. It does, it just talks, to me, it speaks about all the different things that we all have gone through, just from every part of being awkward, being young, trying to figure shit out, and special song to me. So I love the grown up song. And actually, one of my good friends, Andy Johnson, grew up in a really fun neighborhood, but then moved to a different place. So Andy, talk about your the candy store you grew up in, and then where you ended up.
You want me? You gonna cue me in on this?
Yeah, I want to cue you in on this. Yeah.
I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and Park Slope. Back when it wasn't Park Slope that it is now, and we moved when I was. My father had a candy store on 7th Avenue between 2nd and 3rd Street. Carvel was across the street. This is what I remember when I was 5. We moved out of there to Keene, New Hampshire. I moved. We moved to New Hampshire. I had like a Brooklyn accent. You know what I mean? Like none of the kids are like, "Who is
So you
this
were
guy?"
basically
I'm
my
like,
cousin Vinny. You and my cousin Vinny.
Where's your toy truck? Where's your toy truck? Where's the ball? And then, what's funny is that Adam Sandler. I read this later on. Too. Adam Sandler moved from Park Slope when we're the same age, give or take a year. When we were both 5 years old, moved to New Hampshire. He moved to Manchester, New Hampshire. I moved to Keene, New Hampshire. He went to Central High School in Manchester. I went to Keene. We played against each other. He got cut like when he was a sophomore. But so we played against each other in like JV basketball. So I said, if I ever run into him, I got to be able to mention that. His high school coach was my AAU coach, and he actually did a bit on Saturday Night Live, a guy named Stanley Spear, who coached at New Hampshire College, now Southern New Hampshire, coached there for 30 years. And a Greek guy who was just a real good coach and a real entertaining, funny person as well, and kind of a fixture up in Manchester. But so we both, me and Adam Sandler, we moved from Brooklyn, New York to New Hampshire the same year. Grew up, and so I told him, I kicked your ass, Adam. If I see him, I kicked your ass. You remember?
No, it's definitely 1-0 you, no question. So this is so Steve, now we're on your, we have 3 left. So you've got 3 left.
Well, before I go on to my third, I want Niagara to talk about his growing up experience with his CYO, the mentorship he had from his CYO coach. That's what I kind of want to get that feel. If I can get that from, if we can talk about that.
Because we'll promote his book called In the Life. And his name is Larry Mazza. He is a retired hitman for the Colombo family. And he coached me for 2 years, CYO. I think cadet and Tyro, like 14, 15, 16, somewhere in that range, 1980-something, Gravesend, Brooklyn. I had no idea that he was a hitman. I was aware that anytime we went to play in an unsavory neighborhood, that he was armed with 3 to 4 pistols. One he wore a strap. He had one in his ankle. He had one in his waist, always. And Jimmy Del Mastro, his lifetime friend, was our assistant coach, and Jimmy was packing. So I can vaguely remember, like during warm-ups, seeing the coach go to half court and open up his Sergio Tacchini. And he is a big guy. Like he's in The Irishman also. So, and you could look him up. There's articles on him. And he would open the jacket and turn to the crowd and spin. And the entire game, the other team would be rooting for us. They're cheering for me. So,
Coach Shane, did you mention that Danny Nigro is in the featured film Gravesend?
I did.
On Amazon Prime.
Thank you, Coach. I can come up with a clip. If we can get some video footage, I can get some clip. Can we get
I have not seen this. I have not seen this major production. I can't wait to see it.
That'll have to be a different episode, but I will say everyone tuning in has probably just realized this was nothing like they thought they were going to listen to. It's fantastic. I have heard that hitmen usually do know how to run the best screens, so I'm sure you guys were very successful. Steve, you're 2 songs into your list, and what we've heard so far, is already off the charts. We have so far to go. I have no idea what's coming next.
All right, so
There's your big screen debut right there.
Oh, get the call.
so I do like this song, The Rising.
Great song. Great song.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites too. It did make my 5, but obviously the 9/11 connotations, the whole thing. Everybody on this panel was affected. More than the average person, right, for living in that area during that event. So go ahead, Steve.
No, it's just family to me. It's just about special moments, and to me, it's a warm, like, just an awesome song. Just something that makes me like reflect back on like my kids, my family, my parents, all the special people in my life, my friends, and just to me, like I love that song for that reason. I always go back to that song for whatever reason. It's just one of those things. And this is my 4th one. Everyone here has had moments like this.
Yep.
I think living close to New York City, or being in New York City, this is, we've had a couple of these moments, together.
And for the audience's sake, give us the name of that one.
Well, 10th Avenue Freeze Out, man. It's just for me, remembrance of like just a lot of special nights, a lot of special times, just being together with really good friends, and for me, like just an awesome song. I'll give you my last one. I know
That side note, that is the first Bruce Springsteen song I remember listening to. This 10th Avenue Freeze Out.
Yeah.
And this is your final one. That was your Scottie Pippen. Now this is your MJ.
this could be like.
Yeah, I had a feeling. I had a feeling this was going to be it.
A little Badlands for you guys, And with this one, it's all about being in the moment, just like living in the moment. I had a great.
What song is that? I couldn't hear it on the.
I'm gonna play a little more. Little Badlands for you, Andy.
And I appreciate the live version, by the way.
I
appreciate that.
Those are the ones I love. And for me, it's just all about like being in the moment, and just always trying to be in the moment. One of my like great experiences coaching at Dowling College, aside from being with Coach Nigro and Coach Nigro Senior in my first year, which was tremendous. It was like beyond belief. But like I had this other assistant, Mikey Schmitz, who Chris got to know, who was an older retired teacher and guidance counselor, and unfortunately, passed away suddenly. But it was with me for 3-4 years, and he would always say, be in the moment, Steve, be in the moment, live in the moment, be in the moment. And that's, to me, what this song is about, just being in the moment. And it's always special to me for a lot of reasons. And that's why it's probably my favorite overall. So I know I left a lot, on the table. There's a ton of great songs, but those are my top 5.
Well, as I said, Coach, your list is your list. Doesn't matter. It's very hard to pare them down. I get it. So, Coach Johnson, you have a tough act to follow, but you're going to be up next. If you have some honorable mentions, feel free. If you just have your 5, then we'll rattle those off.
And I'm going to go a little quicker than Steve. I like the anecdotes and the analyzing the thematic views of each song, but I'm going to go pretty quick because I think we got to move along here. All right. So
it's like a Bruce concert. Guys, it's like a Bruce concert.
Before we go to the top 5, I'll mention a few: The Rising, The River, and those 2 in particular. I didn't put in my top 5, but again, this was tough. I mean, when you start, like today, I was like going through listening, and I'm like, oh my God, how can you do this? So anyway, with that said, can't go wrong. All of them were Bruce. So I'm going to go, and I'm going to go in order. I'm not going to cop out like Steve. Steve, you copped out. Not in any particular order. He said, I'm going to go 5-1.
Yeah,
right?
that's the one. That's the one blemish I have. I mean, you took the easy route. So
All right, number 5. I'm on fire. And I'm going to tell you, most of what I'm going to appreciate is basically the music, as opposed to even though he's a great poet and his lyrics are unbelievable. It's interesting though, because some of his songs, you might not, you think they're one thing just listening to it. And then if you really read the lyrics, it's a total opposite thing. For example, this isn't one of my top 5, but Born in the USA. It's like a total opposite of what a lot of people think that song's about, because they just think the anthem of singing Born in the USA, and it's a totally opposite type of really.
Well, if you remember, Ronald Reagan adopted that song for his campaign.
And then he got upset with that.
Yes.
Right?
But he thought it was a feel-good song about the USA as well.
Right.
That's how clueless, right? So.
Right. Okay, so I'm on fire. Number 5. Number 4, Thunder Road. Then number 3, and then the last 3, it's more like, to me, the music and the feel and all that kind of thing. And I put at 3, Glory Days. And number 2, Blinded by the Light, which if that comes on, if you're driving in the car and that comes on the stereo, I mean, I think you just crank that up no matter what, right? And then the last one, Born to Run. I mean, again, another one where it comes on the radio, you just crank it as loud as you can and start wailing away. And to me, those songs are kind of like anthems. They just, you just can't help but crank the music on those. So.
I knew you were going to pick Born to Run as number 1. Because the night we couldn't find you, you were running about 4 hours. We couldn't find you.
No, he was at the bar. At the bar.
At the bar.
At the bar.
He was at the bar.
In the bar.
Where the hell was the guy?
He thought he fell in the
I thought you were going to say because I'm here in Finland, Born to Run.
Coach Breaker, I've only known you roughly 27 minutes. I am so looking forward to your list, just based on the conversation so far. So I'm going to let you have the floor. You can have, like I said, a couple honorable mentions, but once we get into your 5, let's go 5 through 1. Again, I'm really looking forward to this one. I know in my heart you're a true expert. Just far away. I can't wait to hear this one. But Nigro, we got you last for a reason, my man. Don't worry.
You saved the best for last.
Yeah, so go ahead, Coach. I can't wait to hear this one.
I'm going to go with 3 of Coach Haynes' songs. Badlands, My Hometown, and The Rising. And then I'm going to add to that Bobby Jean. And definitely number 1, No Surrender.
Yeah.
I think all us coaches can relate to that.
Yeah, you have to. Otherwise, you ain't going to make it. Yeah, I mean, I expect nothing less. Having Bobby Jean on there is fantastic. And obviously, No Surrender as well.
That's an underrated one.
Yeah, I expected nothing less out of you. You definitely delivered. But as I said, not to be outdone, we still have Coach Nigro.
Listen, we're all waiting for that.
Yeah, I mean,
give Coach Breaker credit. He kept his shirt on at the concert. We were on the floor at the Meadowlands, and Chucker took his shirt off. And Chucker was a large man. Larger than life in many ways. And Chucker did a spin. He did a 360. And as you said earlier, Bruce, like Billy Joel and certain artists, can transcend generations of father to son to grandfather and on. The mother and the daughter, 2 generations of Springsteen. She grabbed her daughter and covered both her eyes as Chucker did a half-naked spin at the stadium. And that poor lady is going to be on a podcast somewhere talking about that night when she saw Chucker half naked baby he was born to run.
Yeah, I booked her for tomorrow night, as a matter of fact. That's an episode in itself. Is it safe to assume, Nigo, do you have honorable mentions? Do you just have 5? Do you even have 5?
There's no 5 in no particular order.
Okay, we're not ranking, but we got 5. Okay,
A quick synopsis of why I chose them.
perfect.
Number 1, in no particular order. Ready?
Wow.
We got flags. We got flags.
Alexa, stop. Okay. Born in the USA. Even though, as I was telling my son, who's a freshman in high school the other day, this song can sort of be, I don't want to say anti-American, but it's not what people thought it was. I think the song kind of does both. I think even though you know what it represents, it still has an American patriotic feel and a component to it. I think it does both. That's one of the reasons I picked it. Because, like you said, Solano, there's reality in the song. It's reality. It's what happened. You know, like it or not, for better or for worse, these are events that happened, they occurred, and he sang about it. So I think it is American because it's true. That's number 1. Glory days. As former players, we're all coaches. I'm kind of surprised I'm the only one to go down that road.
It was an honorable mention, Dan. It was an
It was an honor.
I believe Glory Days was my third top choice.
Yes, Coach Johnston. Well, thanks for paying attention.
What about
Coach Johnston
Are
definitely.
you listening, Nigro?
7 honorable mentions.
Yeah.
He read off 7 honorable mentions, and I lost my train of thought. Anyway,
Glory Days was my third top. It's top 3. Nigro, come on.
I, as a player, former player, I really think that song stirs up a lot of emotion. And as we're, pushing, some of us already in our 50s, you kind of look back on that song and it hits home. My hometown, as Steve said, I think everyone kind of relates to my hometown in a different way. I might remember the Hitman and the Avenue U Boys and the social clubs, and Steve probably remembers the farmers out in Suffolk County.
Hey, you told me. No, listen. You told me I belonged in Brooklyn in the Stars of Life, and I ended up exactly where I belong.
So the question is, when you hear the song, which town does it remind you of?
Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, where I belong.
Your hometown.
According to you, Nigro.
Now, when Glenn hears hometown, he thinks of running numbers, bookmaking, football sheets. When he hears my hometown, bodies. So that's 3, right? Okay.
Hey, Danny.
That's the old Brooklyn.
Danny. Before you get to 4, can you cue everyone into like your beautiful neighborhood, Williamsburg, what it was like before it became like Williamsburg? Could you cue everyone in with
It's a lot different than it was today, that's for sure.
What your hometown was really like growing up? Like
It was a lot more fun. A little more dangerous, but a lot more fun.
Hey, yeah, in Glenn's neighborhood growing up, at the local restaurant, you'd buy broken leg of lamb. It was a tough
My father was FDNY and spent most of his career in Ladder 119, conveniently located in that area. And I remember
which one? Richardson or the South Side?
South Side.
Oh, baby.
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah, and I remember going and staying over in the firehouse. Yeah, I remember going and staying over there in the firehouse and going on runs, and it was home brave, as they say. So
he saw a lot
listen.
of fires too. They were burning down the neighborhood.
Oh yeah.
Hey, listen, you heard Glenn made reference, to the neighborhood. You know what I mean? The neighborhood, So we're we're going to a Met game, right? Nigro, were you with us? Steve, were you with us? You might have been.
Right.
And we're driving to the game, and I'm like, where are we going to park? This might be a spot over here. And he's like, no, I know a guy. I'm like, what do you mean you know a guy? I know a guy from the neighborhood. And so he drives up to like the VIP entrance of Shea Stadium parking. And he says, hey, is Chuck around? Is Charlie around? And they're like, yeah, just tell him Glenn's here from the neighborhood. Glenn from the neighborhood. And then 5 minutes later, the guy waves us in. He waves us in. Free parking, VIP. I know a guy from the neighborhood.
That is a true story.
It's true, right, Glenn?
That was the guy told me I
It was
was
$25.
this white boy in the bathroom that same night. That's boring, crazy.
What was that?
The guy in the bathroom at the bar. What's the bar at City Field? McFadden.
McFadden.
It was a good
I
night.
think we went to the game, but they had the bar outside. We
Never
didn't get
been-
into the game till
I
like the
don't think we
sixth
got to
inning
the
because
game
we
till
couldn't get out of
about
the
the
bar.
eighth inning.
Made the seventh stretch.
Yeah, for the stretch, for the song.
Yeah, I expect nothing
I
less.
think if I remember
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Chucker had his shirt off that night too, dancing around McFadden.
Yes, he did go shirtless.
Nigro, somehow we still have two songs. We still have two
I don't
songs
know.
left for you, which,
Oh, let's get back to that.
I'm not even sure it matters. But, yeah.
Kind of railroad me. Where was I?
You look like you're taking the SATs
Number
right
two.
now.
Hungry heart. Everybody has a hungry heart. If you were ever married or are married, and the line about going out for a ride and never coming back, if you haven't thought to yourself as a married or former married man when you're driving about just turning left, you're lying. All the podcast listeners, when you're listening with your wife, you're lying.
See, now we just found out what the issue was with Anna earlier, where you were selecting your songs and you chose Hungry Heart as one of them.
It's all making sense now.
Yep.
Why for Anna? Glenn, we told the story earlier.
Now, I don't know where you go after becoming a deadbeat dad and deserting your family, but you have one left. So I don't know where you go next, but let's see it. We got to hear this, right? I mean,
All right, I'm losing my train of thought. You guys throw me off.
you have one?
Yeah, I'm going down. As a coach, after you
That's a
lose
good
a
one.
game or you lose 2 in a row or 3 in a row, you cannot help but listen to I'm going down. You just feel like the whole thing is spinning. You don't know how to stop it. You're trying to, your mind never relaxes when you're coaching. And a regular person doesn't understand how, especially basketball. Like I have my own wife say this to me. You just created 5 scenarios that don't exist. I said, yeah, that's a 30-second timeout with 10 seconds to go. If they go zone, if they go man, if they switch, like I have to tell you in 30 seconds, 5 different possibilities that we have to be prepared for. So I'm going down sort of relates to a losing streak.
Well, we could also take a step back to your last, The Hungry Heart. When you're married, you're always thinking about 5 different scenarios too, basically every hour of the day, right? Like it's the same
Out the
idea.
garbage, fix the refrigerator. You want me to keep going?
No, yeah, there's more than 5. So the problem with being me and going last is, not to mention that it was 4 great lists. Then I have to follow the Tasmanian Devil from here. So mine is going to be probably the least thought about and even listened to, but we're gonna give it a crack. I have a couple honorable mentions before I get to my 5. Some that were mentioned already. I'm on Fire from the Born USA album is one of my honorable mentions. Rosalita, one of my also honorable mentions. The Rising, which was on a couple lists. Thunder Road is probably one of the top 100 songs of all time, according to a lot of people. It's been mentioned. It didn't make my 5, but it is fantastic. If I get to my 5, I don't know if this is good or bad. My number 5 is one that, of all people, Nigro had. I'm going down.
Of all people.
Yeah, of all people, Nigro had it. I'm going down. It's definitely for reasons you described too, Danny. It's definitely one of the ones that I always, with Born in the USA, the album itself, I thought was very good. This is the track that obviously sticks out to me in that one. My number 4 hasn't been mentioned yet, from Greetings from Asbury album. Spirit in the Night is my number 4. One of those, I believe there's been 2 or 3 times at odd hours, me singing into the phone and leaving a voicemail for Coach Hain. We don't have to go too deep,
Possible,
but
possible.
those are that's where that stems from. My number 3 was also not mentioned, Atlantic City from the album Nebraska. Also, my top 3. Now I'm into Ruth Mantle and Maris for me. Like this is so Atlantic City being my number 3. Everything about that song I love. I also love Atlantic City, so there you go. As I mentioned, now I'm into my Mantle and Maris. My number 2 from the Darkness album is Badlands, which we've discussed already. Coach Hain, I don't know if you remember this. You made me promise, if you unfortunately go before I do, that we play this at your wake. We need Badlands on the
100%,
right.
yes.
Just to make sure that if that's your dying wish to me, I don't want to even talk about that topic. However, I will honor that, and it'll be on a loop. Badlands, my number 2.
Steve, will there be allowed to be able to have a beer at that week too, or no?
You know what? I think there's a chance that might be, with the song and yes, I think that's definitely a.
I just wanted to make sure, in case
Yeah.
I might still be around.
There'll probably be porta potties there as well.
Having to wake is a salty dog. Don't worry.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
No question.
Yes.
The fire truck.
Don't even get us going on Nigro's surprise 40th birthday party. Don't even get us going. Let's see if
That's
we can fit
definitely-
that in.
Fire truck.
Yeah, that's definitely a stuff of legend. That could be a whole episode from what I hear. We may get to that.
Oh my God! Yeah.
My number 1, if it even matters anymore, also from the Darkness album, wasn't mentioned. My number 1, Bruce all time, Prove It All Night is my number 1.
Yes.
Number 1 Bruce track. I love everything about it. The guitar work, the song, all the reasons we all mentioned for all those songs. I feel good about everybody's list. I feel good about the stories we heard. Basically shows that this music does take you to different places, and for all of us, for that matter. Coach Hain, real quick, any memorable shows, any memorable Bruce concerts that you want to bring up, talk about? You can go first.
What do you got, Nigro? What's that?
You remember anything?
So
One thing to say about Bruce, and I know this is a Bruce podcast, okay? I love Bruce, but he has to be number 2 because he's from Jersey. So Billy will always be number
We saw this coming.
This guy's from Jersey.
So
It's Billy and then Bruce.
Wow.
wow. Like right during the Springsteen show.
I love you, Bruce. I love you. But I'm from New York. I gotta get a shout out.
You couldn't go offline with that?
And we're all from New York.
Hey, listen, you're in a New York state of mind, Nigro.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I love Jersey girls, but I'm in a New York state of mind.
I mean, so essentially, Nigro has just brought up the Holocaust out of Bar Mitzvah. So we'll basically go back to the original question, Steve. Anything you remember from any of the shows? You've seen a million of them. Anything stand out particularly?
Well, I would say the car ride home from my 1986 Born in the USA tour was tremendous. Great friends, six of us, and then it was just
Designated driver?
What's that?
Designated driver?
100%. We were straight and narrow, man.
They had Uber back then.
Yeah. That would, to me, that was the best. I was there as a high school kid, young, impressionable, and had the best time of my life. The worst seat in the house, but the best time of my life in the '86 Born in the USA tour. 18 years old. That to me, that's like just a great memory that I'll always have for the rest of my life.
And that was at Giant Stadium, correct?
Yeah, that was Giant Stadium. Yes, we literally, we were in the highest level, the furthest back. We literally had the worst seat at the best show, and it was just tremendous. And I will never forget that 4.5 hour show.
So, Coach Breaker, Coach Nigro, we've talked about men undressing. We've talked about kidnappings, all the things that entailed your experiences with the boss. Coach Johnston, any closing remarks, any memorable shows, anything that comes to your mind that really hit home to send us off?
I mean, just coupling up on what Nigro said, I did see Billy Joel in Hartford in the Innocent Man tour, I think, in 1989, 90, I think. Yeah, he was pretty good. and my favorite Billy Joel song of all time, no questions asked, it shouldn't even be a question, is New York State of Mind. I mean, not even close.
I respect John.
So, hey, Coach Solano, the show just got hijacked. Who the guys from Brooklyn would have hijacked?
Yeah, no, the wheels fell off 40 minutes ago. I'm just trying to keep us afloat at this point. Yeah, you get 4 guys from the neighborhood, the wheels are coming off. They're coming off. The car's getting stripped.
I know a guy from the neyborhood. Tell him Glenn from the neighborhood's here.
How do you think Glenn got the tickets? The guy in the neighborhood.
The guy in the neighborhood.
Gentlemen, I can't thank you guys enough for coming on. This was a great time and a great topic, but the topics don't mean much if you don't have good people. Again, I really appreciate you guys all coming on. I felt like I did have an expert panel with unique stories that you're not going to hear anywhere else. So thank you. Thank you again. I hope we could do this again. And kind of have you guys back on to take it deep and really this will probably go down as a pioneering episode in terms of lack of control, lack of great contact. We did a Bruce Springsteen podcast where Billy Joel was crowned the best. Yeah, so I don't know if I can beat this. I fear for my upcoming episodes. I don't think I can get close. So I really appreciate what you guys brought to the table. It was a blast. I hope you guys had a great time. Everybody out there listening, stay safe. Let's keep distancing, wash our hands, all those things. If you get jammed up, remember, my guys have a guy from the neighborhood they can call up. They'll help you out. Make sure you return for the next Take It Deep podcast. Make sure you come back. Once again, I want to give one final shout out to the panel. They were fantastic. Take care, gentlemen. Take care, everybody. We'll be back shortly with Take It Deep.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.